The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 164. Defense wins championships. Even in this era of wide-open spread and wildcat offenses, it still comes down to making stops and creating turnovers on defense. Will this year's D be good enough to lead the Wolverines back to the top of the Big Ten? Coach Greg Madison is getting us closer, but are we there yet? This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to this week's show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. There are times when it seems like the 2012 season ended just a couple of weeks ago. But in reality, winter has passed, spring football was months ago, and voluntary summer workouts are now over. Starting this week, it's the real deal. This past weekend, Team 134 reported to Ann Arbor and on Monday hit the practice field for the first time. We all expect this team to be better than last year's. At Big Ten Media Days in Chicago just a few weeks ago, Coach Brady Hoke said that 8-5 at Michigan is completely unacceptable. And we all know there is much work to be done. In many areas, this team will be very young, but also very talented. When it comes to Michigan football, expectations are once again very high. And if you ask Michigan fans, I think they would all say that is the way it should be. In the coming weeks, we're going to break down the Michigan two-deep on offense, and next week get Adam Rittenberg on from ESPN to give us his take on the state of this year's Big Ten. So there's a lot to pack in before we get to our Central Michigan preview show in a couple of weeks. Today the focus is this year's Michigan defense. And I think we can all agree that Coach Greg Madison has done a remarkable job in his first 2 years as the D coordinator. This year he has more talent and more depth at his disposal, no question. Coach always says he wants to get back to being a Michigan defense, and it looks like we're getting closer to achieving that goal. On our Michigan Game Day segment this week, we break down the Michigan two-deep on defense. Today our guest is Zack Travis, managing editor of the blog Maize and Brew and contributing columnist on Michigan football to the Detroit Free Press. He joins me next here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. With us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is Zack Travis from Maize and Brew, one of our great Michigan blogs, and also a columnist for the Detroit Free Press. Zack, it's great to have you back on the show.
It's great to be here. Always enjoy it.
Well, this week, as we know, today we're taping the interview on Monday. Michigan starts practice. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be reading more and more about the offense, about the Big Ten, in anticipation, I should say, of the upcoming season. Today, Zack and I are going to focus on the defense. We're going to look at the two-deep chart and see what Zack's take is on that. The defense, as we know, is one component of this team that we expect great improvement in. So, Zack, let's start with the wide side defensive end. And I'm using a two-deep chart that came out of spring practice. Feel free to update this if there's something you know that's happened since. On the wide side defensive end, a guy we've been hearing an awful lot about, 6'2", 277-pound junior, Frank Clark.
Frank Clark is definitely, he's one of the X factors on this team, I think, going into the fall. Michigan's really lacked that pass rush. Really, since Brandon Graham was there, they haven't had somebody on the defensive end spot that could really get after the quarterback with a consistent threat to rush. And it's kind of hampered the defense a little bit. I mean, the defense has been good the last couple of years, but a really good dedicated pass rush when you can just get four guys out there and say, hey, go get the quarterback. You don't have to dial up as many blitzes. That's really the kind of thing that's going to help the secondary out a lot. And it's going to make the defense take the next step. And I think Frank Clark, from all accounts in the offseason, he's done the work. He's put on the muscle. He's gotten stronger. He definitely went up against Lawan and Schofield in practice. They've had good things to say about him. So I think he's going to be a pretty big factor. I don't know exactly how good he's going to be. Of course, we won't really know until they suit up for real. But I've got some pretty high hopes for him, and I think he could finally deliver that really strong pass rush from the weak side defensive end that I know Madison has been looking for.
Well, Zach, it sounds like Taylor Lewan has a very high opinion of Frank Clark, too. You've seen him refer to Frank on more than one occasion as a freak.
Yeah, I know both of them, both Lewan and Schofield have said it, and pretty much it seems like every off-season report has come out and said something else crazy about how fast Clark is, how strong he is, how big he's gotten. So hopefully he can translate all of that into production on the field.
And unlike the last few years, at a lot of these positions, we have some nice depth. Also battling at that wide side defensive end, Mario Ojemudia, 6'2", 244-pound sophomore, and a newcomer, Taco Charlton, who we're hearing a lot of good things about, and he is a big kid, 6'6", 265-pound freshman.
Yeah, the backup role there is going to be interesting. I think Ojemudia presents a little bit more in terms of experience. I mean, he played last year, especially playing as light as he was. I think he was somewhere around 230 pounds last year at the very weak side defensive end, which is just crazy to think about. I think early on he's going to be the second guy in line, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Charlton start eating away at some of the snaps and working his way into the rotation, especially on passing downs if he can really show himself to be a good rusher from that weak side defensive end. I mean, he's shown the speed rush. The big concerns with him are going to be run defense. But Michigan's definitely going to look for somebody else, kind of a third down specialist, somebody to get after the quarterback. I mean, not having Jake Ryan anymore, who they used to like to put down on the line, to give him that kind of rush off the edge. Either Ojemudia or Charlton could be that guy. So I think early on it's going to be Mario, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Taco work his way in, like I said, a little bit into the season. And I think he'll play pretty well, but you always got to worry about run support with young guys. Technique is definitely going to be a sticking point, something they'll have to work on.
Well, Zach, over on the other side, the short side defensive end, we've got a few guys who we know their names. We just haven't seen much of them yet. Keith Heitzman, 6'3", 277-pound, redshirt sophomore, penciled in coming out of spring as the starter, but he's battling with Matt Godin, I'm not sure how you pronounce that actually, 6'6", 277-pound redshirt freshman, and a guy we didn't get to see because of injury last year, Chris Wormley, 6'5", 290-pound redshirt freshman. Three big bodies there.
Yeah, I think early on you've got to give the nod to Heitzman just because he does have that experience. He was the guy coming in for Rowe last year. He held up pretty well. I mean, he wasn't flashy. He wasn't really showing you too much in terms of explosive plays. But at that strong side defensive end, if you can get a guy who can hold up well against the run, keep the edge pretty good, it's really what you're looking for. And I think he'll be a pretty solid option. I'm not sure who's going to end up behind him. Godin's a possibility, Wormley as well, although I wouldn't be surprised to see Wormley shift inside a little bit, play more of that 3-tech spot. And I'm also wondering what we're going to see from Tom Strobel, who should be probably close to what the coaches are looking for at the strong side defensive end. So it's really tough to say. I mean, this is one of those position battles in camp, and especially all along the defensive line. You've got a lot of young guys, and you don't really know who's going to shake out at the top and who's going to shake out at the bottom. Right now, I think Heitzman, no. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see Strobel take the number 2 job there.
Well, what you got to like about it, though, Zach, is I know we're doing the 2 deeps, but at both of these defensive end positions we just talked about, we're actually 3 deep there.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big thing for the defensive line. Something they haven't had some time is that much depth. And even if you get over to the offensive side of the ball and you worry about some of the younger guys playing, the nice thing that's always something good to have is even if you've got a bunch of young kids, as long as there's competition there, and I know Brady Hoke would say the same thing, as long as you've got a lot of guys competing for the spot, then they're working at it, and you're guaranteed to at least get the best out of the pack, which is something you want. You want guys pushing each other in practice. And so the defensive line, I think, it's going to be young, but they've got enough guys there where I think the competition's going to be good, and somebody's going to emerge and play pretty well this year, some of the younger spots.
We have to hope that happens, and as Coach Madison has been saying since spring practice, he wants this front, this defensive front, to generate more pressure on the quarterback. They don't want to have to blitz as much. So let's look at these defensive guys, the big uglies in the trenches. And we'll start with Jabril Black, who really started to come on last year. He's a 6'2", 276 senior. Battling with him, Willie Henry, 6'3", 306-pound redshirt freshman, and Tom Strobel, who you just mentioned is maybe moving outside. He's still listed on the depth chart as a defensive tackle, and he's a 6'6", 262-pound redshirt freshman.
Black he's always been a player I've liked. I never felt like he was in kind of the right position to excel. Really, to me, it almost feels like he should be more on that strong side defensive end. I mean, I'm not going to or question the coaches on any of this, but it just seems like from his game, he's a little bit too small. That's kind of why I was thinking somebody like Wormley is a good bet to shift onto the inside. He'll be able to hold up a little bit more against some double teams, against some of that inside blocking. Black did play pretty well at times last year, but you want to see a guy upwards of 280, 290, almost 300 pounds at that 3-tech spot. But Black definitely brings the quickness. He can get into the backfield quick. Kind of comes from that defensive end spot where he played earlier in his career. So if you can get penetration, you can get somebody who's good in there getting after the quarterback, he can make up for a lot of the shortcomings in run support, being able to hold up against double teams and such. But I think Wormley's going to be a name to watch in there. I know he's been mentioned around a few places as possibly a pretty good 3-tech. He's definitely got the size, he's got the height coming off that injury, so I think he could be a name to watch. And some good things have been said about Willie Henry, and I think he's one of the guys, out of that 2012 class, he was somebody I was really excited about, kind of got that late offer committed towards the end of the cycle. But he's the kind of guy you want, athletic, big, hard-working guy on the line. I think in the end he's going to develop into a pretty good defensive lineman. I'm not sure what they'll get out of him this year. But again, it's nice to have competition. It's nice to have multiple names to talk about. And I think towards the middle of the end of camp, we'll see this shake out a little bit, kind of have a better idea exactly where everybody falls. But the thing on the defensive line is pretty much everyone's going to play. You're going to go 2 deep, even 3 deep sometimes. Get a lot of rotation, a lot of fresh bodies in.
Yeah, that is a good thing for all of those guys involved in the competition. Greg Madison said that at Big Ten meetings in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, the media days, I should say, that he really doesn't consider it a first team or a second team, that he's going to be playing a lot of guys. They're all first team.
That's, like you said before, with depth. It's nice to have that many guys that can come off the bench and get in there and play. I mean, we're a long way from 2011 when it was Mike Martin and Ryan Van Berken just being Ironmen in there and playing basically the whole game themselves. So it'll be good to have a lot of bodies in there, a lot of youth, and I think these guys are going to start to come along. And I've got some pretty high hopes for the defensive line. I think they'll start to deliver on some of that this year.
Well, let's look at the nose tackle position, Zach. Quentin Washington, who we all expect a big year from, 6'4", 305, fifth-year senior. Andre Pipkins, who got some playing time last year. Coach said he wasn't really in shape, ready to go. This year, he's dropped some pounds. He's 6'3", 308. He's only a sophomore. And then you have a veteran, Richard Ash, 6'3", 316, redshirt junior in the mix. Some nice big bodies there.
Yeah, I mean, Washington was the big surprise out of fall camp last year. Really, nobody thought he was going to be much of a factor on the defensive line. And he ended up coming in and having a pretty solid year as a nose tackle for Michigan. And something that they needed. He was good at absorbing blocks, really mucking things up on the inside, and making life easier for the linebackers, giving them easier lanes to float the ball, make plays. So it's good to have him back. It's good to have kind of that anchor in the center, and to give Pipkins another year to really develop. You can't too often expect a young guy to come in and contribute, especially as a freshman on the defensive line, but even as a sophomore. There's so much technique involved. There's so much you're going to go after in terms of absorbing double teams, having to deal with so much at the point of attack. And I think another year kind of working into a bigger role will be good for Pipkins. I think he'll be able to flash a little bit more in terms of what his ultimate potential is, but still going to be a growing process. And another guy I wouldn't be surprised to see play here would be Willie Henry. I could see him shifting over, getting some snaps at 3-tech and at the nose tackle position. So, again, it's going to be a lot of different bodies. Richard Ash is a guy we haven't heard too much about in a couple of years, ever since he basically committed. But he's definitely, he's there, so we'll see if he can make some noise in fall camp.
Well, let's take a look at the guys behind the guys in the trench and start at the Mike linebacker position, as Coach Greg Madison likes to call it. Desmond Morgan back, 6'1", 227-pound junior, and he's fighting with Joe Bolden. Very impressive freshman last year, 6'3", 222. Nice depth there, two very talented young men.
Yeah, Desmond Morgan has grown up pretty well. He got thrown into the fire fairly early. Michigan needed that weak side linebacker his freshman year, and he stepped in. He made some mistakes. He didn't always hold up quite as well as you want, but he flashed some instincts. He's a good, strong linebacker. Not quite as quick and as athletic as you want on the weak side, but that's part of the reason why he shifted over to the Mike spot. I think he'll be pretty good, and I think you'll see a decent amount of Joe Bolden, who did come on, play some fairly significant time for a freshman last year. It's going to be tough for Bolden to overtake Morgan just based on experience. That middle linebacker spot is something you want experience. You want a guy who's been there, who's seen a lot. You don't want him to get lulled to sleep, get kind of caught off guard on some of these different plays, things like play action or counters. You want somebody who's going to make quick reads, smart reads, and get the ball. I think Bolden will get some playing time, but I think Desmond Morgan is going to have a good year, a good solid year, one of those years where he's up top 2, top 3 on the team in tackles.
Well, Zach, at the will linebacker position, a very talented young guy we saw a lot of last year is James Ross, penciled in as the starter, 6'1", 223 pounds, only a sophomore. And another very talented kid, Royce Jenkins Stone, 6'2", 215-pound sophomore. So at that will linebacker spot, again, two very talented guys vying for time.
Yeah, I think this is going to be James Ross's year. I've got really high hopes for him. I know I'm not the only one around the Michigan blogosphere. A lot of people have been singing his praises. From the day he stepped on campus, he seemed like the will linebacker of the future. Really smart kid, great instincts, the kind of kid, as soon as the ball snapped, he's made up his mind, he's going, he's doing the right thing. And that's really what you want. He's not as big as some of the other guys, but he doesn't have to be. At that weak side linebacker spot, he won't have to take on quite as many blocks. He'll get some chance to be a free hitter, and I think he's the kind of kid who's going to really excel in that role. And I think this is going to be a good first full-time year starting for him as he starts to separate himself later on in his career as one of the better linebackers in the Big Ten. Really got high hopes for the kid. As far as Royce Jenkins Stone, that one's a little tougher to predict just because he came in a little bit more raw than I think what people were expecting, although at the same time he was a Cass Tech prospect, so you never really know how advanced these guys are going to be at doing some of these reads and really playing the fundamentally sound football. As far as what Michigan can get out of him, I think they're going to lean a lot on Ross. I don't think it's going to be the same thing as the middle linebacker spot. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if Ross needs significant breathers, that Bolden gets a little chance to run at the weak side too. Madison has said that those inside linebacker spots are pretty much interchangeable. They kind of want a little bit of different things from their guys there. But I think Bolden right now would probably be the first linebacker off the bench for either the Mike or the Will spot. And I think Royce Jenkins-Stone, as he continues to develop, he might be able to work his way in there. But I think he's still another probably year off, maybe two, from being a solid option on that weak side, just because he didn't flash the same kind of instincts as a guy like Ross has, and Bolden even.
Well, to Sam linebacker spot, the last of the linebacker positions, Brennan Byer has moved back there, 6'3", 254-pound junior, big guy at that position, and he's battling with Cam Gordon, 6'3", 233-pound, fifth-year senior. So that's going to be interesting to watch, too.
That position, I think, on the defense is another one of those X factors. It's another one of those position battles where it's going to determine just kind of how great Michigan's defense can be. I mean, I know they're going to be good. They've got enough pieces back with Madison leading the charge. I'm not worried about them being good. But replacing somebody like Jake Ryan, whether it's for the first 2 months of the season or the entire season, I don't know if his recovery timetable is really going to be as quick as Brady Hoke has said. But the thing with Jake Ryan was you could put him out there in pretty much any situation, and he'd be able to do some things for you. I mean, he's the kind of guy, he could put his hand on the ground, rush the quarterback from the defensive end spot. On things like 3rd and long, they'd work him in there. He was good holding up on the run, on the strong side. They could run right at him. He's taking on blocks from tight ends, holding the edge. And then he'd make plays out in the flats, too. They could split him out on slot receivers. And I remember, I think Purdue, he had a pretty impressive play, blowing up the quick screen out there. And it's just the kind of thing where you always knew what you were going to get from Jake Ryan. He was an all-purpose player, and he's really the kind of thing that you want at that Sam linebacker spot, which is going to be one of the versatile spots, somebody you want to move all around. I think Michigan still has some of those skills with the guys that they've got. Byer comes in from the weak side defensive end spot. He's going to be solid against the run, but I think you lack some of the explosiveness with him, some of the playmaking ability outside in the flats, in the passing game. But at the same time, then you've got Cam Gordon in there as well. He's in the mix. He comes from the safety spot. Granted, he didn't have all that much luck there, but you know he can do a little bit more in pass coverage. You know he's a little bit more comfortable with it, a little bit more better with the explosive aspect of the position. The big thing is, will Michigan really get caught trying to do too much substitutions? Will teams be able to take advantage of the fact that if Byer's out there, then they try to pass around him? If Gordon's there, they're going to try to run right at him. I wouldn't be surprised as Michigan works against more spread teams if they drop into a lot of nickel coverage, start using DeMonte Thomas a lot more. He's going to kind of bring some of the blitzing aspects, some of the coverage aspects, and some things that, again, Ryan was able to do, but you really don't have a guy in the roster as capable of as much as Jake Ryan was. So it's definitely going to be a question. I think both Byer and Gordon are going to get some playing time, and it's going to be a lot of situational stuff. I think you see Michigan in the nickel a lot as well to kind of work against some of these spread offenses.
Our guest on the show today is Zack Travis from a great Michigan blog, Maize and Brew, and Zack is also a contributing columnist for the Detroit Free Press, covering the Wolverines. And today we're taking a look at the two-deep chart, at least the two-deep chart coming out of spring. We all know, starting today with practice, that could be changing, probably will change. Let's move back to the secondary, Zack, a position group where finally, for the first time in quite a while, we're finding some depth, and good depth. Let's start with strong safety. Thomas Gordon, 5'11", 208, fifth-year senior, and Jeremy Clark back there fighting with him. He's a 6'4", 201-pound redshirt freshman.
Gordon is going to be a pretty big part of this team's ability to stop the big plays. I mean, losing Jordan Kovacs is a really tough blow. You don't come across many safeties like that, guys who are so instinctive, so capable of really understanding what the offense was trying to do and staying one step ahead of it. Gordon's got plenty of experience. He's going to need to really step up. He's going to have to be able to provide all sorts of different support, whether it be in a passing game are filling in on the running game, doing a lot of the things that Kovacs was able to do. I think Gordon's going to be pretty good. He's definitely been pretty good in the past, but there's probably going to be a couple struggles in there, just because it's easy when you've got Kovacs there to kind of bail you out. But I think Michigan's going to be pretty well set at that strong safety spot. I'm kind of wondering exactly what's going to shake out as far as the two deep goes behind him. There is a lot of guys that they could move in, but the thing is there's just not a lot of experience. So you kind of wonder what Michigan's going to be able to trot out. I know Jeremy Clark is still a young kid, but we really haven't seen anything from him as a redshirt freshman. So it's going to be interesting if Michigan does run into a couple injuries in the secondary, especially at safety. Things could get a little dicey.
At the free safety spot, a guy that the staff seems to really like penciled in as the starter, Jared Wilson, 6'2", 196, only a sophomore, got a lot of playing time last year. And then a veteran battling with him, Josh Furman, 6'2", 197-pound senior. Your take on those two guys?
I've got high hopes for Wilson. The one thing that worries me is the experience angle. Again, you want guys who've seen it before. Like I was saying at the Mike spot, you want guys who are instinctual about this, who've seen these plays enough where they're not going to get caught off guard. The offense isn't going to be able to do something that makes them think, wait, what's going on? I think Seth at MGO Blog put it the best when he said that really it's the repetitions at these positions, especially he was talking about the free safety spot, Wilson in particular. Wilson doesn't have those reps. He's a sophomore. He played spot duty last year behind Kovacs and Gordon. He made some mistakes. He made a few good plays, but he's really going to be thrown into the fire this year. They're going to be asking a lot from him. I think he'll be able to hold up fairly well, but again, you can't expect his defense to stop quite as many of the big plays as they have in the years past. When you've got a young guy in there like that at free safety, occasionally there's going to be breakdowns, but the quicker he can come around, the quicker he can get comfortable in that spot, the better off Michigan's going to be in the secondary. And I really don't know what to think about Furman. He's been on the team for a while. Definitely has the athleticism, but it's another case of have those instincts developed. Is he going to be able to read these offensive plays, know what's going on well enough to not get beat? So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in fall camp, and it'll be interesting to see really what Wilson's going to play like early on in the year, if he looks confident, if he looks like he knows what's going on, or if he's still a little hesitant. Well,
on our two-deep chart, Zach, we're left with the cornerback positions, and we've got good depth there, too, for the first time in a long time. At one side, right now, Courtney Avery could be the starter, 5'11", 174, a senior. I think he worries some of us. The kid that played a lot last year, Ramon Taylor, 5'10", 186 junior, battling for time. And a kid coming out of spring camp that we heard a lot of good things about, Delonte Hollowell, 5'9", 175-pound junior. Who do you think emerges from that group?
The way I see it, I think Ramon Taylor is going to end up at the boundary corner. That's really going to be the spot that's going to take on a little bit more of the run responsibilities. It's what J.T. Floyd has played the last couple of years. Kind of going to be left on an island a little bit, but he'll see more on the short side of the field. And I think Taylor is going to be pretty well, I think he'll pretty well hold up in that role. He showed some good things last year, both in run support and in the passing game. I'm worried a little bit about Courtney Avery. He's never really shown kind of the strength that you need in the run support. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to be a good secondary option, somebody that you can work in at both corner spots. He's definitely got the experience. He's played a lot. But I would say it's going to be Ramon Taylor, definitely as a starter on the boundary.
And I think, like many of us, you've heard good things about Delonte Hollowell, too, though.
Yeah, that's right. He had a pretty good spring. I could see him probably playing a little bit more in the field corner just because he's not quite as big, so I think he's going to end up playing a little bit more behind Kaunis on the other side, doing a little bit more in pass coverage. he's definitely made a little bit of a name for himself. He could be one of the first cast tech corners here to really work out in quite some time. Michigan's had a run of bad luck on those guys, but we'll see. He's got some skills, so.
Well, on the other side, I think we all have to feel good that Blake Countess is healthy, ready to go. 5'10", 181-pound junior, of course, missed all of last season. And the kid that's backing him up right now, I should say, is another one of these freshmen we've been hearing an awful lot about, DeMonte Thomas, 6'2", 187 pounds, gives us a pretty strong combination over on the other side.
Yeah, I think Countess, obviously losing him last year was a huge blow to the defense. He was really looking to be Michigan's best pass defender. They could have used him. I mean, the pass defense had its struggles through the year. One of the good things to come out of that, though, is that Taylor got so much run. He was able to develop, get some starting experience. So I think having him on the other side is going to be good. If Blake Countess can come back healthy, come back 100%, I think that'll do a lot to help his defense out, especially in the pass defense. And like I said, I think you'll see a little bit of Delonte Howell behind him playing, and then Courtney Avery working in behind him. I'm really looking at DeMonte Thomas. He kind of separated himself in that nickel corner role in the spring game. As a guy that the coaches like, they can put him on the field. He can play almost as an extra linebacker and an extra defensive back, kind of guy you can blitz, the kind of guy who can play coverage. Really brings a lot of versatility. In years past, they've worked a little bit more with Courtney Avery in that nickel role, somebody who's smaller, does a lot of coverage underneath. But I'm excited to see what Thomas can do. I think he'll have a pretty good year, and I think we'll be seeing a lot of them throughout the year.
Well, Zach, wrapping it up, then experience at some of these position groups is lacking right now. We know that. The national critics have, mentioned that when they, previewing this Michigan defense. A lot of question marks, but you cannot question the talent and the depth for the first time in a long time on this defense. I think it's improved and should improve dramatically this year. Would you agree?
I think so. I think actually this year the depth is definitely there, but the experience is still a little bit lacking. I think next year is when you can really look for this defense to start making the big steps forward to what it can be down the line. That'll be a couple of years into Hoke and Madison's recruiting. You'll have a lot of the depth. You'll have some decent experience from guys. And I think that's when defense really takes a big step forward. I still think it's going to be good this year. I think it'll show us some flashes of what it can be in the future. The big thing, like I said, is going to come down to some of those different position battles, some of those different X factors, stuff like can Frank Clark provide that pass rush? What does Michigan get out of its Sam linebackers with Ryan not on the field? And how well does Jarrett Wilson slot into that free safety role? How does he hold up? I think if Michigan answers those questions satisfactorily, this defense is going to look really good. And I think next year, as you get all of these guys on the defensive line with a year of experience under their belt, get the linebackers all back and most of the secondary back, I think that's when you're really going to start to see things take off for this team. But it'll be a good defense this year. Definitely, they've got some talent. They've got some depth. There's some guys returning, so should be a good year. Should see a lot of the same things from Michigan defense. Strong against the run, strong on third down, hopefully stopping some big plays. But I still think they're a couple of years or a year off from being the monstrous force that I think that Madison is building.
Our guest on the show today, helping us break down the Wolverine two-deep chart on defense, at least as practice begins this week, has been Zack Travis from Maize and Brew, and also a contributing columnist for the Detroit Free Press, covering Michigan Wolverine football. Zack, as always, it's a pleasure, and I invite all of our listeners to keep up with you on Maize and Brew, and we'll have a link to the site on our show notes page. So we look forward to having you back on the show. Thanks for the time.
Yep, thanks for having me. I enjoyed being here and talking a little Michigan football. Hopefully it'll get here pretty soon and we can start watching.
Amen to that. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Thanks again to our guest today, Zack Travis from the great Michigan blog Maize and Brew. Follow Zack and his great group of writers at www.maizeandbrew.com. Zack also writes a weekly column each Wednesday during football season in the Detroit Free Press, so check that out too. Coming up next, we wrap it up for yet another week with Wolverine Quick Hits here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits this week, Blake Countess is a competitor first and foremost. So when Michigan opened spring practice in March, the sophomore cornerback who missed virtually all of last season with an ACL injury was ready to roll, no questions asked. I honestly felt 100% during spring ball, Countess said on Monday, but they wanted to be careful. Countess got the red light from Michigan coach Brady Hoke 5 months ago, but now the shackles are off. Countess is 100% healthy and has full clearance for all fall camp drills, this coming nearly 12 months after he tore his ACL covering a punt during the first quarter of a 2012 season-opening loss to Alabama. Of course, the Wolverines have plenty of things to get accomplished this month during fall camp. It has to find a starting running back, we need a starting center, and need someone to step forward and fill Jake Ryan's spot at strong side linebacker. But above all else, we need to keep Devin Gardner healthy. Michigan coach Brady Hoke said Monday that Gardner, who is about to enter his first full season as the Wolverines' starting quarterback, will not participate in full contact drills during camp. We pretty much have done that with quarterbacks since we've been here, Hoke said. Once in a while, you'll get a guy who is a little over-anxious as a defensive player, and he gets his hands up and the quarterback follows through, or he knocks an offensive lineman back and the quarterback follows through. We'll be as cautious as we can with all of that. Gardner's health, above all else, is priority number one right now for Michigan, and it likely will be throughout the coming season. In other news, Dennis Norfleet is on the move again, officially this time. The Wolverine.com reported in spring that the sophomore speedster would be going through another position change this fall, this time from running back over to slot receiver. On Monday, after Michigan's first official practice of fall camp, Coach Brady Hoke confirmed the move. We took Norfleet, and he's playing receiver for us in the slot position, Hoke said. I think that can open up some things for him when he gets the ball in his hands. He still has a lot to learn, though. Norfleet was Michigan's primary kick returner for the entire 2012 season, returning 35 of them for 827 yards. The 5'8", 186-pounder was then moved very briefly over to cornerback before the team's Outback Bowl loss to South Carolina. And now he's back on offense, but with a new position. And after watching the close of his junior season go down the drain due to a gruesome leg injury and spending months in the training room rehabbing, Fitz Toussaint returned to practice on Monday. The Michigan fifth-year senior running back was full of smiles. He says his leg feels fine and his mindset is where it needs to be. His confidence, too, is apparently. Asked who will be the team's starting running back on August 31st, when the Wolverines opened the 2013 season against Central Michigan, Toussaint didn't blink. I'm going to be the starting running back on August 31st, Toussaint said firmly Monday after the conclusion of the team's first practice of fall camp. So that's good to hear. Good to see Fitz back on the field. And there's a real battle going on in the backfield with more depth than we've seen, more talent in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer than that. We'd like to thank again our guest today, Zack Travis from the blog Maize and Brew, great Michigan blog. Visit www.maizeandbrew.com and follow Zack and his crew's coverage of Michigan football. You can also read Zack's weekly Michigan football column each Wednesday in the Detroit Free Press. On next week's show, our guest is going to be ESPN's Big Ten reporter, Adam Rittenberg. We'll discuss the Big Ten race and get his take on this year's Wolverines. So don't forget to join us next Wednesday for that. Now that fall practice has started, you'll need your daily fix of Michigan football. There is no better place to get it than right here at GBM Wolverine. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. We have player profiles, recruiting news, our lively message board, plenty of chatter about this season and the always popular Monday Night Live chat with all of our very talented writers here at GBM Wolverine. So don't delay, visit www.gbmwolverine.com and join today. Make sure you're in the Wolverine loop this season. Don't forget our show app is now available from a variety of sources. For Android users, we're in the Market Store at Amazon.com. For Apple devices, our app is available in the iTunes Store. Another great way to tune us in for free is with the TuneIn Radio app. You can also hear the show on Stitcher Radio on demand. Download the free app today at www.stitcher.com. Get the latest episode faster on Stitcher, where the latest shows continuously update. Our phone lines are open for your calls 24/7, and we would love to hear from you. You can give us your prediction for this season or any thought you might have on anything Maize and Blue. Call 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. You can also email us your thoughts and opinions at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. So give us a shout anytime. Again, next week we talk Big Ten football, and our guest is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN, so please remember to join us for that. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone, and as always, go Blue! Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!